I would like now to ask three distinguished colleagues. First of all, Professor Carlo Alberto Nucci from the University of Bologna, first chair of the Powertech International Steering Committee, then Professor Ronnie Belmans from KU Leuven, and then Professor Jan Blom, who is Professor Emeritus and is the acting chair of the local organizing committee of the Powertech, to speak in memory of Wil Kling. Thank you all for being here. Carlo Alberto, the floor is yours.
Professor Nucci, you have the floor.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I certainly share the thanks that Professor Wurn has made to our colleagues and all the organizing committee here. But I think it's appropriate that I focus my short talk on Wil Kling. I think that all those who have met him agree with the fact that he was a man capable of transmitting immediately what nowadays is called the positive energy. We were confronted with a person having high intellectual capabilities and who was dealing with all the main items in a life of a professor in an excellent way. I think that these items, starting from the inner part of a professor and going towards the external world, are papers, the first one, lectures, the second one. And then is how they raise their collaborators, probably is the third point. And then is how we interact with our colleagues, and that is the fourth point. And then I find a fifth point, which is very important, how we interact with the society, what we give to society. And so what I'm going to read now is a summary with the elements and data kindly provided me by Madeleine Gibescu, which in my opinion portrayed very well what Wil Kling has done. Professor Kling has been a presence, a highly appreciated presence at Powertech, at least since the Porto edition, and joined the International Advisory Committee of this conference from 2009. He has been a driving force ever since, keeping up the quality of the conference by contributing to its rigorous review process. The chairmanship of the present edition was awarded to Wil Kling already 3 years ago, back in 2012, and formally announced at the Grenoble Powertech in 2013. I remember how he wanted to have this conference. I was so glad when, there is a kind of pending list for this. We were capable of saying, yes, well, this will be your conference, your group conference, the Eindhoven University Conference. Since then, he has been tirelessly at work to make this event a success in terms of upholding the recognized scientific level while at the same time making the event attractive for the industry, as well as the young men and women who are now considering a career in the power and energy sector. The fruits of his labor are evident today. Very much so, I would say. In the record attendance, the largest ever. The actuality of the keynote speeches and panel discussions to follow shortly. The scientific sessions, technical tours, and many networking opportunities which we hope you will experience in the next few days. In the international arena, Wil had a natural talent for bringing people together, for making connections between communities of researchers and industry professionals that spanned all continents of the world. This is evident in his representative for Subcommittee C6 in SIGRE on distribution system and dispersed generation, as well as the representative of the Netherlands to the Administrative Council of SIGRE. He was a senior member of the IEEE and the recurrent presence at the PES General Meeting where he organized panels on topics such as power quality issues related to new means of distributed generation and loads, and more recently, energy efficiency and smart cities. I think he was one of the first who really understood the importance of smart grids in the development of smart cities. Besides the PES general meeting, Wil was involved in many other conferences, such as the Innovative Smart Grid Technologies, IEEE, ISGT, the Power System Computation Conference, the European Energy Markets, EEM, and the University's Power Engineering Contest, the UPEC. Wil has also given back to the scientific community by authoring papers and acting as a reliable reviewer for the IEEE transactions on power systems and power delivery, and also the more recent transaction on smart grids and on sustainable energy, plus other journals. Wil's long and outstanding career is by now history. He joined the Vertically Integrated Utility SEP in 1983 and stayed on after the regulation with the newly formed Transmission System Operator Organization, TENET, TSO, and senior engineer for network planning and strategy. In 1993, he started as part-time professor at Delft University of Technology, and in 2000, in a similar position at the Eindhoven University of Technology. He only renounced his position at TENET in December 2008 to become full-time professor and chair of the Electrical Engineering System Group in Eindhoven, the very same group that has the honor of hosting this conference. He is probably one of the few people present here today that can boast of having once held 3 positions at the same time. We feel him still present, linking the 2 major technical universities of the Netherlands with the industry community of grid operators and technology developers. I think you need to be a kind of special person to do this, to accomplish this. With this characteristic energy, enthusiasm, and commitment, he started and led many research initiatives in power system reliability, large-scale integration of wind power, new grid architectures, distributed generation, in short, almost all aspects related to planning, operation, and real-time control of traditional and nowadays increasingly smart grids. In the spirit of this conference, Wil was also an outstanding educator. We see his pupil around us, always involved in enriching the young minds, as many in the audience who were once his master students, PhDs, and postdoctoral researchers we can recall. With the same patience and commitment, Wil shared his expert knowledge with managers and politicians, educating them about exotic concepts such as reactive power, interconnected systems, phase shift transformers, while at the higher level making everyone aware of the importance of the electrical infrastructure to a smart and sustainable society. I think that we live in a kind of privileged world because we have the opportunity to see each other on a regular basis. And what I always found interesting in our community is that it takes just a few minutes when you meet a colleague and shake his hands to understand how he developed. You immediately recognize the level of development he had. And this is because we read the papers that they produce in the meantime, but also because of a kind of human empathy, of a capability of transmitting something that some people have more than others. And Wil was one of those. Let me just conclude by quoting one of his sentences, which was kindly prepared by Giselle. Power system, he said, it is like a big flywheel that once up to speed it requires great effort to either accelerate or decelerate it. So let's keep the wheel spinning. Let's keep the forces driving our society in equilibrium in the memory of Professor Wil Kling. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Nucci. For the next in memoriam moment, I would like to invite to the podium Professor Ronnie Belmans, also an old colleague of Professor Kling from Katholieke Universiteit of Leuven and the CEO of Energieville. Professor Belmans, you have the floor.
Dear friends and colleagues, dear Miriam, it's a bit of awkward to stand here. When I saw Wil somewhere in January, he said to me, "Tja, you're always so busy, you probably will not find the time to come to Eindhoven to the Powertech." I told him I will be there. What I could not foresee at that moment is that he would not be able to be here. This is a pity, but this is life. If you suspect or expected some pure scientific seriosity from me, please leave the room. I think that all technical developments of what Wil did were clearly presented by my colleague Nucci, and therefore I will not do that. There will be top papers presented in the conference, so this is not the time for it, to my feeling. I will give, and Jan Blom asked me that, my personal appreciation of a great person who was internationally recognized far more than he himself ever realized. And that's typical for Wil. Things were as they were, and his contribution could never be that big from his point of view. I met him first in his Tenet time. He was highly regarded, also in Belgium, by his peers at ELIA, of which I had the honor to chair the board of directors at that moment. And if I said to the people at ELIA, I got this information from Wil Kling, the case was closed. It was reliable, it was clear, and it was no longer debatable. He was a pure power engineer, loving high voltage pylons much more than cables. The real stuff, that's what it's all about. I'm going to give you a few anecdotes, and Mel, please don't listen all the time. We presented once, now he's going to listen, I'm sure. We presented once a project at Tenet on high HVDC, and you could clearly see that he doubted a bit about it. But in a very gentle way, he tried to convince me that the classical approaches still were the way to go. After the meeting, he said, "Did you like the discussion?" And I said, "Yes, because I like the discussion." He said, "You should know that I'm certain that you are technology-wise correct. But it's too expensive," my boss told me, "and therefore we had to be against it." And if I would have used that argument in the discussion, you would have said, Dutch are always, and I'm going to use a Dutch word, I cannot translate it, krenterig. So don't want to spend that much money. Difficult to translate, but I did so. And I had to admit, I would have used that argument in the meeting. So he really was foreseeing what was going to happen. He was a great person. Oops. His appointment at the TU Delft and the TU Eindhoven as part-time professors was far from evident. Mr. Dean, though he mastered the subject better than anyone else in the Netherlands and far beyond that, he was a great teacher, and nobody can guide PhD students better than he did. It was difficult to accept him because he had no PhD. Discussions, debates, but finally the real arguments of knowledge were convincing. We started a joint PhD project on the control of phase-shifting transformers in the Benelux. But he had a problem. He did not find a good candidate. So I provided one of my master students, Jody Verboven, who worked in Delft, and at our place, Dirk van Hertem, who is now professor at our place, did the job. And Tenet and ELIA sponsored. This was the Benelux long before others have thought about it electrically. And Mr. Kroon, if you asked me before, when we were sitting together there, do I believe in the Benelux as a common platform for the organization of a grid? Yes, yes, yes. And you sponsored already the first project yourself 10 years ago. Thank you for that. The guys did the work, and Wil and I had fun. The number of PhD juries we were sitting on together are countless. And be assured, Wil always provided a lot of valuable input, and beyond chapter 1 and 2, as often seen by external jury members. What he always liked was to be a member of the jury in Leuven, because we always have a good dinner after the jury. And sometimes he felt really unhappy that he could not find the equivalent, certainly not in Delft. Eindhoven is in Brabant, that's beneath the rivers, that's already different. I'm going to put a bit of quarrel into the Dutch surroundings, always happy to do so. We met every 2 years in Paris at Sigret. He was the one who indicated the best restaurants, to find the best wine, and to tell jokes that make you laugh in an honest way. Miriam. The last time I was there with Wil, he was worried a lot about you. You probably don't know. There were elections for the provinces in Holland at that moment. And if I remember well, he had to return home because he wanted to be with you. Either to celebrate your victory, or to give you a shoulder to lean on if it would have gone wrong. I never got the result of that election. But anyway, he was a family man, family guy, a caring person. And this is really nothing to do with the scientific context, but that's what I wanted to bring. But also, very difficult with Wil, if we as Belgians want to hide something from the Dutch when we are in France, we speak French. Something you should not do when Wil was around, because goddamn, he spoke French very well. So, Laurent, this is one of the exceptions. There are a few Dutch who do speak French. He loved to go to IEEE meetings, listen to presentation, to give a lot of comments and guidance, and afterwards saying, this girl or guy still has an awful lot to learn, but he and she will make it. See it. One of the things we had on our common list of things to do was to bring the Benelux electricity system to reality. Unfortunately, I will need to find a new body to do that. Nobody can replace Wil, though his work will still continue. During his last years, he came down to the distribution level, the smart grids. I do not really know whether in his mind he did not remain a real power guy. And to a certain extent, I have the same feeling, if I'm honest. But he guided the group in Eindhoven with enthusiasm. He would have loved to chair this conference, and the conference will not be the same without him. Certainly not the dinner, but I'm pretty sure that he has chosen the wine as a last point of one of his agenda. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Belmans. Now for the last in memoriam segment, I would like to invite to the podium Professor Jan Bloon, the acting chair of our Powertech conference and Professor Emeritus of our Electrical Energy Systems group here at the University of Eindhoven.
Miriam, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor and a privilege to have known Wil Kling for more than 30 years. Wil Kling had many qualities which cross your mind when remembering the many occasions I shared with Wil. I would like to mention 3 qualities for which I will remember him for the rest of my life. The first characterization in which I will remember Wil is his knowledge of transmission networks. For me, he has always been Mr. Transmission Grid. This originated when we met in 1981 at KEMA where Wil was employed as junior engineer with the so-called technical economical department, and at that time I was heading the electrotechnical research group there. At that time, Wil was developing his skills in the area of planning and operation of power systems. We were impressed by his expertise, which he demonstrated when he participated in joint research projects. The second characterization of Wil is as a very pleasant and social person. I remember one of the CGRE conferences in Paris, where Wil and myself had to walk back to the hotel because the metro service was closed for the night. Not that the metro was early, but we were late. Fortunately, Wil knew the way in Paris due to his sabbatical leave at Électricité de France a few years earlier, and gave me an impromptu guided tour of Paris by night. 10 years later, I had the privilege of encountering Wil again when I was a member of the nomination committee of a part-time professor for TU Delft. As other speakers have mentioned, he was elected in 1993 as a professor in Delft. I'm very happy we made that decision, because Wil did a great job guiding a number of excellent thesis projects resulting in the production of skilled young doctors in the area of power system reliability, power system dynamics and control, and large-scale integration of wind power. When I had the honor of getting the chair of electrical energy systems here at Eindhoven, my first thought was, I need a Mr. Transmission Grid, so I need Wil Kling's expertise. Therefore, I was very happy to be able to attract Wil Kling as part-time professor with our group in the year 2000. So at that time, Wil had 2 professorships, both in Delft and Eindhoven, and this turned out to be an excellent combination, because it served also to improve the cooperation between these 2 universities in the field of electrical energy research. And besides adding to the education curriculum with his lecture on power system planning and operation, Wil demonstrated the third remarkable quality I would like to mention, and that's his ability in networking. Due to this skill, Wil was able to attract many research contracts and also people from industries who were excited to work for a day a week in our group, adding to the research and education, and also improving the relation with industry. As a result, the smart grid and power quality research in the group was growing into a major research area with a total of more than 10 PhD students. In 2008, I had to retire, and it goes without saying that Wil Kling was a prime candidate as a successor for the chair electrical energy systems. So he was appointed, and he continued his work in expanding the research he had already started. He added expertise in power quality, asset management, active distribution grids, and power electronics through the appointment of a number of part-time professors in these fields. The number of PhD students kept growing through the successful acquisition of research grants from national and international funds. Wil was proud to be able to show the success of his work by the organization of this conference. It's very sad he cannot witness this success today. Therefore, it is appropriate to remember Wil as Mr. Transmission Grid, who should have been with us now. I wish Miriam and his sons courage and strength to continue with without their beloved husband and father. And we shall also continue this scientific work in future power systems and smart technology, trying to match his enthusiasm and commitment to his field.
Thank you, Professor Blom. I would like now to invite to the podium the IEEE Power and Energy Society Executive Director, Mr. Pat Ryan, and the spouse of Professor Kling, Miriam van der Pijl. Miriam, if you can take the podium for a very special moment.
Do you want to use the microphone?
In appreciation of your husband's great contributions to this
not only this conference, but also the IEEE Power and Energy Society. We'd like to present you with this plaque in memory. Thank you very much.